For me, one of the scenes that I really wanted to talk to you about was the storm scene.
Oh yeah.
That was a pretty intense scene, and obviously it was done, on soundstage and everything, but nevertheless, to have that kind of power of wind coming in, you can't fake that. So talk to
So
me
we
about
did
that.
we did that in different sections. So that when they're trying to get back into the ship,
Hmm.
there was a section of ship that was built on the back lot at Pinewood. And so all the big wind machines and everything. So it was kind of done. There were a lot of containers. So what they do is, as you know, they stack up loads of shipping containers and then they put blue
Right.
screen on the front of them. So it's like having a sort of stage outside, you know, I mean, it's like an interior stage, if you like, without the lid. And so that was all done, and having conversations about what the grit was, what if it's things like the aging down of the paint finishes on the ship. You always see these ships, don't you, and they look all shiny, or you'll see them and they look like Blade Runner or one of the other ones where they're all brown, and they're quite
Mm.
aged down and dripping. And it's kind of like, okay, so what is it like? Because when you travel through space, you get wear and tear. They're going to be little things, particles flying against it. A bit like when you get bugs on your car, you're going to get
Right.
that, aren't you? So, we had quite a lot of conversations about, well, what's that like? And then, of course, I had to match up with the vehicles, with the rover vehicles and with the small sort of 4x4s. It's like, well, how worn out are they? Are they brand new? Are they, what are they like? And that scene was, I remember when we did it, there's many elements to making it cool, like the amount of output of light that you've got coming from a suit, when they're moving their heads around. And what is that light like? What color is that light? What is the light like they're holding? And obviously DOPs always want everything to be, really powerful. And it's very difficult to get a battery to blast out that amount of light and for it to survive. So you have to devise very clever ways of doing that by hiding battery packs inside costumes and big battery, doing it. And it's like, what color is that like? Ridley loves yellow. He's like a big yellow lighty person. You can see that in a lot of his films. And he loves orange. It's amber. He likes all of that, but he also likes white light. And so when all the sand, when everything's coming, the actors got to fight against it, and I think they did it really well because they did it was shot on the back lot and they did it at night and it was pretty grim. And everyone had stuff all up their nose and everyone was covered up, with kind of, they looked like they were in the desert because that was the only way to sort of deal with it. And also we did think about doing it inside a containment of a stage, and then Ridley was like, it's never going to be big enough. I mean, we'd have to go in the 007 stage, but let's do it here. And so a decision was made to build part of it outside. You could drive into it, had the ramp that went up, and the scene where she gets the
Hmm.
flamethrower and kind of, you could actually drive into that space and do it. And it's like, well, so what is that space? Well, it's a space where we're going to put the vehicles, but then we use it again later when she's talking about the mission, or before, I think that was before that scene. She's talking about the mission and they're all sitting there and she's explaining, and the screens come up and she's explaining, what it's all about. That was that same space, because
Mm.
Ridley loves using spaces more than once. But yet we weren't saying when they were in that space, we weren't saying, oh yeah, you're in the car park. We were trying to say you're actually in another part of the spaceship. So there's all those transitional things are happening. And of course it was like, well, can we shoot that scene first? Because when we start getting all the sand, it's going to go absolutely everywhere and we're never going to
Yeah.
get rid of it.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I didn't know that he uses same space, which is actually quite cool because what it does is obviously you're using less resources, number one, from a budgetary standpoint, but also it pushes people into their creativity side of things where you're trying to come up with new visuals in the same space and it pushes boundaries,
It
I
does,
feel.
and it does. And also I think, I say to people who ask me about, what it's like, and I said, oh, I can redo a room. I could probably redo a corridor maybe 5 times. I could think of 5 different ways of using a corridor. And I probably would use it as a corridor once or twice. And the rest of the time, it wouldn't be a corridor. And it's just because, I don't know, I just learned that very early on when I first met Ridley. And I had done it before, on other shows that I'd done. You revamp the set. But Ridley is just so the master of it, because he also, it's the way you shoot it, isn't it? It's the way you light it. It's what is the story you're telling at that time? What are the actors saying? And I think if you think that what they're saying is enough, you're not going to start to notice, oh, is that wall? Oh, it looks remarkably familiar. You're not going to notice. You aren't. And I think it's where you position people. It's like how you use that space. Do you shoot that way? Then the other time you shoot that way, then you shoot that way, then you can shoot that way, or you go in a corner and shoot out that way. And, he is just so good at that. And I do agree with you. I think it's a really important skill. And especially, these days budgets are so tight. And you just think you need to know that and do that and be able to revamp something and not go, oh, well, we'll have to go to another place. It's like, actually, you don't. Actually, you don't. And he did it a lot. He did it on, I mean, I can pick out, because I just know, having worked with him so many times, I can pick out and go, yeah, you've shot in that room already. But that's only because I know, because I kind of know what's going to happen. I know the process. I know which way he's going to turn. I know, is he going to flip it that way or that way or that way or that way?